Welcome back to Hollywood Task, the place where we don't just repeat what everyone else is saying. We look at the moments the cameras never captured and the details people try to hide. And today, the story we're about to talk about might be one of the most humiliating twists in the entire downfall of Kody Brown. Because something strange is happening in Flagstaff, and if the whispers floating around town are even partially true, then Kody isn't just losing control of his family anymore. He might be losing control of his finances too. For years viewers watched Kody present himself as the successful patriarch. The big property at Coyote Pass. The expensive lifestyle. The flashy accessories. Everything about the image screamed wealth and authority. But lately the narrative has started to crack, and the newest rumors suggest that the money behind that image might be disappearing faster than anyone expected. And that's where the pawn shop sighting comes in. Now listen carefully, because this is where things start to feel very different from the story we've been shown on television. Local chatter from people around Flagstaff has been growing louder. Small conversations. Quiet sightings. Little details that don't quite match the confident image Kody has always tried to project. According to several whispers circulating through fan circles and locals in town, Kody was recently seen entering a place you would never expect him to be. Not a luxury car dealership. Not a high-end jewelry boutique. Not some business meeting about a new investment. Instead, the location people are talking about is a second-hand buyer. Essentially the kind of shop where valuable personal items are evaluated and resold. And according to those rumors, Kody wasn't there to buy anything, he was there to sell. Now of course none of this has been officially confirmed, but the details people are describing paint a very uncomfortable picture. Instead of looking like someone casually trading collectibles, witnesses described a man who looked tense, impatient, almost frantic. Not the calm confidence of a businessman making a smart move. The kind of body language you see when someone urgently needs cash. And what makes this story even more shocking is the items people claim were being discussed on the counter. Longtime viewers already know that Kody has always loved luxury watches. Over the years fans noticed them getting more expensive and more flashy. They became part of his image. A symbol that he was still the powerful head of the family, still successful, still in control. But the rumors now suggest those same watches may have been part of the items being evaluated. Just think about that for a moment, that a man who built his identity around status and control doesn't casually give up the trophies that represent that status. For someone like Kody, those watches aren't just accessories, they're symbols of power. And people usually don't start selling symbols of power unless something serious is happening behind the scenes. If the whispers are accurate, it raises an uncomfortable question: is the cash flow finally drying up? Because the story becomes even more dramatic when another detail enters the conversation, and that's where Robyn comes into the picture. Alongside the watch rumors, there's also chatter about boxes of collectibles being looked over. Items that longtime viewers immediately recognize from Robyn's home. The famous glass cabinets filled with delicate figurines that fans have talked about for years. The Precious Moments collection. For a long time people joked about how many of those statues filled the house. But the reality is that some of those pieces can be surprisingly valuable, especially older or rare editions. And if those collectibles are truly being evaluated for resale, it suggests something far deeper than a simple decluttering session. Because Robyn's collections have always seemed like her personal sanctuary. Her comfort. Her safe space. So imagine what must be happening inside that massive house if those shelves are suddenly being emptied. It's not hard to picture the tension. If the rumors are even partially true, then this isn't just about selling objects. It could mean the financial pressure inside that household is becoming impossible to ignore. And when you step back and look at the bigger timeline, the math suddenly starts making uncomfortable sense. For decades the Brown family functioned on multiple incomes. Christine had her projects and opportunities. Janelle was often described by fans as the practical financial backbone of the family. Mary brought in major income through her businesses and her bed and breakfast, but one by one, those income streams walked away. Christine left and took her earnings with her. Janelle eventually separated and stepped away too. Mary gradually built an independent life and her own financial success. Suddenly the family structure that once relied on several contributors was reduced to just a fraction of what it used to be. Yet the lifestyle didn't shrink with it. The large house, the property taxes, the utilities, the cost of maintaining that kind of home in Flagstaff, all of it still exists. And maintaining a mansion designed for a massive plural family becomes a lot harder when the majority of that family, and their income, is gone. This is exactly why the pawn shop rumor is gaining so much attention in the fandom, because it lines up almost perfectly with the timeline fans have been watching unfold. The show itself has changed. The family is fractured. The future of the series has been constantly questioned, as so naturally people start asking the obvious question: where is the money coming from now? But if Kody really is trying to sell items quietly, it's unlikely he would ever admit that things are getting tight. Anyone who has followed his personality over the years knows he rarely admits defeat. He rarely acknowledges mistakes. And he almost never allows himself to look weak, which means if something like this is happening, there's probably another story being told behind closed doors. Maybe it's being framed as a smart financial shift. Maybe it's being presented as clearing out old items before a new investment. Maybe it's being described as preparation for finally building on Coyote Pass. But here's the uncomfortable reality. People making strategic investments usually sell valuable items through collectors, auctions, or private deals. They don't walk into quick cash resale shops where items are typically sold for far less than their real value. That kind of place is usually where people go when they need money immediately. And when you combine that possibility with the tension viewers have noticed in Kody's recent appearances, the puzzle pieces start forming a picture that's hard to ignore. The frustration, the sudden bursts of anger, the restless energy. Those are often the signs of someone carrying a level of pressure they don't want the world to see. Because publicly Kody still tries to present the image of victory. The idea that he and Robyn came out on top while the rest of the family walked away, but the contrast between that image and the rumors now spreading through Flagstaff couldn't be more dramatic. Projecting strength is easy when cameras are rolling, but if the whispers are true, the real story might be unfolding quietly behind the scenes, and sometimes the loudest sign that something is wrong isn't what someone says, it's what they're suddenly willing to sell. And when you really step back and look at the situation, the timing of these rumors becomes even more interesting. Because while all of this quiet speculation about Kody's finances is starting to circulate, the rest of the Brown family seems to be moving in the exact opposite direction. Christine has been living what many fans describe as her happiest chapter yet. Her new life, her marriage, her freedom from the chaos that once surrounded the plural marriage structure. All of it has created an image of someone who finally escaped years of emotional strain. Janelle, on the other hand, has been stepping into a completely different energy as well. Confident, independent, focused on her own goals, and surrounded by a support system that doesn't revolve around Kody's approval anymore. Even Mary, who spent years in a complicated and painful dynamic, has been openly embracing a life that finally belongs to her. In other words, the three women who once helped build the Brown family empire have moved forward, and in many ways they appear stronger without the system they left behind. But back in Flagstaff, the story seems very different. Because if Kody and Robyn are still trying to maintain the same lifestyle they had when the entire family was financially connected, the pressure must be enormous. Think about it. For years that household was supported by multiple adults contributing income. The show, businesses, partnerships, appearances, it all added up. Now imagine suddenly losing several of those financial streams almost at once. The house still needs to be paid for. The utilities still need to be covered. Property taxes in Arizona don't disappear just because the family structure changed. And maintaining a massive home designed for a large plural family becomes incredibly expensive when the majority of that family is no longer there. This is why so many fans believe the pawn shop story could actually make sense. Because the numbers alone tell a difficult story that a lifestyle built for 5 households can't easily shrink overnight into a lifestyle supported by just 1 or 2 income sources. And yet publicly, Kody continues to project the image that everything is fine. That he and Robyn are stronger than ever. That losing the other wives didn't damage anything important. But human behavior often reveals more than carefully chosen words. Have you noticed how tense Kody has appeared during some of his recent public moments? The frustration, the sudden bursts of anger, the defensive tone whenever the subject of the past relationships comes up. Many viewers have pointed out that he seems more restless than he used to be, almost like someone carrying a level of pressure that's difficult to hide. And if the rumors about selling personal items are true, that pressure suddenly becomes a lot easier to understand. Because financial stress has a way of changing people. especially when someone has spent years building their identity around the idea of success and control. For someone like Kody, the image of being the strong patriarch was everything. The leader of a massive family, the decision maker, the provider. But what happens when the structure that supported that image starts falling apart piece by piece? What happens when the family members who once contributed to that structure are now living completely independent lives? And what happens when the world begins to question whether the person who claimed to be the leader was actually depending on the very people he pushed away? That's where the emotional side of this story becomes impossible to ignore. Because if there truly was a moment where Kody walked into a second-hand shop to sell watches or collectibles, it represents something deeper than a financial transaction. It represents a shift in power. For years the narrative suggested that the wives needed Kody, but the current reality seems to be telling a very different story. The wives moved on, and many of them appear happier, calmer, and more successful than ever. Meanwhile, the man who once stood at the center of that family is facing questions he never expected to answer. Questions about money, questions about stability, questions about whether the image he presented to the world was ever as strong as it appeared. And if the whispers from Flagstaff continue to grow louder, this might only be the beginning of a much larger story. Because once rumors about financial trouble start spreading, they tend to lead to even more discoveries. People start looking closer, fans start connecting timelines. Details that once seemed unimportant suddenly become clues, and sometimes the truth hiding behind those clues ends up being far more dramatic than anyone originally imagined. So the real question now is simple: is this pawn shop sighting just another exaggerated rumor floating around the internet? Or is it the first quiet sign that the Brown family empire, the one that once looked so powerful on television, is finally starting to crumble behind the scenes? Because if the whispers coming out of Flagstaff are pointing in the right direction, then the story of Kody Brown's downfall may be far from over, and the next chapter could be even more shocking than the last. But here's where the story becomes even more unsettling, because the possibility of financial pressure doesn't just affect Kody. It changes the entire dynamic inside that house with Robyn as well. For years Robyn was often portrayed as the wife Kody protected the most. The one he defended, the one he prioritized, the one whose home slowly became the center of his world as the other marriages collapsed around them. Their relationship was presented as the strongest bond left standing when everything else fell apart. But strong relationships can also face enormous pressure when reality starts closing in. Imagine the atmosphere inside that house if money truly is becoming tight. The conversations late at night. The arguments about expenses. The tension of trying to maintain an image of stability while quietly making sacrifices behind the scenes. Because if items like luxury watches or collectible figurines are actually being considered for resale, that means something personal is being given up. And when those kinds of possessions disappear, they leave behind more than empty shelves. They leave questions. They leave stress. They leave a constant reminder that things are no longer as comfortable as they once were. And for someone like Robyn, who has often been described by fans as someone who values security and stability, that shift could feel incredibly frightening. Think about how long the narrative surrounding their household has been built on the idea that Robyn and Kody were the final couple standing. The ones who stayed loyal to each other while the rest of the family walked away. But being the last couple left doesn't automatically mean life becomes easier. In fact, in many ways it can become much harder. Because suddenly there's no one else to share the pressure, and no other households contributing income, and no other partners helping carry the weight of the family's financial responsibilities. Everything lands on the shoulders of the two people still standing in the center. And if those rumors about selling belongings are accurate, then the illusion of control that Kody has tried to maintain for so long might be slipping away faster than he expected. That illusion has always been one of the most fascinating parts of the entire story. For years viewers were told that Kody was the leader, the decision-maker, the one guiding the future of the family. But as time passed, fans started noticing a different reality. The women were often the ones running businesses, managing finances, and creating stability while Kody focused on the role of patriarch. When those women stepped away, they didn't collapse. They adapted. They built new lives. They created independence, and now many of them appear happier and more secure than they did during the years when the family structure was still intact. That contrast is impossible to ignore. On one side you have women rebuilding their lives with confidence and freedom. On the other side you have a man still trying to convince the world that he never needed them in the first place. But actions sometimes speak louder than pride. If the rumors about the pawn shop are even partially true, then the image of the untouchable patriarch is facing a reality check that no amount of confidence can hide. Because when someone who built their identity around success suddenly has to start selling personal possessions, it tells a story that words can't easily cover up, and that's why this moment has captured so much attention among fans. Not because of a watch, not because of a porcelain figurine, but because of what those items represent. They represent the possibility that the life Kody fought so hard to protect may finally be changing in ways he can't control. For years the show presented the Brown family as an unusual but powerful unit. A group that faced challenges together and somehow kept moving forward no matter how complicated things became. But that unit is gone now. That what's left is a completely different reality. And if the whispers coming out of Flagstaff continue to grow louder, the world might soon discover that the final chapter of this story looks very different from the confident image Kody once tried to project. Because sometimes the real turning point in a story isn't a dramatic fight or a public breakup. Sometimes it's a quiet moment, in a small shop, where someone realizes the life they once controlled is slowly slipping out of their hands. And if that moment truly happened the way people are describing, then the unraveling of Kody Brown's empire may already be well underway. And the more people talk about these rumors, the more one uncomfortable question keeps surfacing. How long can someone keep up the illusion before reality finally catches up? Because for years the image surrounding Kody was built on confidence. He spoke like a man who believed he had complete control over his world. A large family, multiple homes, land waiting to be developed, and a television show that placed him at the center of everything. From the outside it looked like a complicated life, but still a powerful one. But what we are seeing now is something very different. The family structure that once surrounded him has completely changed. The women who helped build that life are no longer standing beside him, and the financial foundation that supported everything may not be as stable as it once appeared. And that is exactly why the pawn shop story keeps pulling attention. Because if the rumors hold even a small piece of truth, it represents something far more symbolic than a simple sale. It represents the slow dismantling of an image. For someone who spent years trying to prove he was the leader of a successful family empire, quietly selling personal belongings would feel like a deeply personal defeat. Not something you would want the public to know about. And that may explain why these details are only appearing through whispers and sightings instead of open confirmation. Because pride has always played a huge role in Kody's personality. Admitting financial trouble would mean admitting that the structure he defended for so long is no longer working the way he promised it would. And that is a difficult reality for anyone to face, especially someone who built their entire identity around being the one in charge. But the truth has a strange way of revealing itself over time. Sometimes it appears in small details, sometimes it appears through unexpected sightings, and sometimes it appears through the quiet changes in someone's behavior. Many viewers have already noticed that Kody doesn't seem as relaxed or confident as he once did. The frustration in his voice, the sharp reactions, the constant need to defend decisions from the past. All of it paints the picture of someone who may feel like the world is slowly closing in. When people feel that kind of pressure, they often try to hold on to their image even tighter. They double down on the story they want others to believe. They insist that everything is fine. But behind closed doors, reality can look very different. And if those rumors about selling watches and collectibles continue to grow, fans will inevitably